Hello, and welcome to another episode of Joys of the Junk Era, the show about collecting baseball cards of a certain age and the collectors who love them. I am one of those collectors. And we're going to do two things in a short amount of time today. I want to talk about one card that I think is utterly gorgeous, and I want to show you a contrasting card that I think is just simply so ugly that it wasn't even worth printing. There are many examples of both. I'm focused on these as I'll, well, let me just, I guess, jump right into the first card because you're looking at it already. I have not been able to get this Carlton Fisk card out of my head since I pulled it from I think I pulled it from a Fairfield Company Rite Aid purchase a couple weeks ago. One of those 100+ random cards, 1 in 4 gets you a hit boxes for $5 that we've seen emerge of late, these repackaged cards. Now, this card shows Carlton Fisk, one of the great catchers in the history of baseball. He, I believe, holds the longest AL record for longest serving catcher, or one of the longest serving catchers. He is, of course, famous for waving fair that home run in the 75 World Series. Of course, a Hall of Famer. Frankly, very little of that goes to why I love this card so much. This card, frankly, could feature any number of decent catchers, and I would still be sort of obsessed with it. It just glows. The light and the shadow are just so beautiful and dynamic. It looks like just like a Caravaggio painting, if you're familiar with that Baroque artist, and the way that light and dark are used to highlight the parts of the subject that you want to highlight. His arm just juts right out at the viewer. His back is turned away, but his face is turned back towards the camera in this kind of dynamic gesture. His stare is just piercing, and he's not even playing. He's not. This isn't your sort of typical baseball card action shot like we saw. Like hitters hitting, pitchers pitching. This is just Carlton Fisk standing between between pitches or something. It has this, and it's a night game, so it has this sort of sublime quality, I think, that's accentuated by the fact that it's it has this like shallow depth of field, so he's in focus and the background is totally blurred, and you can't really see anything but these sort of blurry stadium lights behind him. This, if this was some old English monarch, would be in the National Portrait Gallery in London, I think. It happens to be on a baseball card, and I think it doesn't, this is why I like collecting baseball cards so much. It's for cards like this. It's you can buy this card for 18 cents on Google. You'll probably get it for free if someone's willing to give it to you. That's sort of the joy of collecting for me, is really sort of separating out the wheat from the chaff, finding that needle in the haystack that's really captivating, finding cards like this. The only thing I'm a little bit lukewarm about on this Upper Deck design, I know we've talked a lot about Upper Deck so far, it's just because they make such great cards, is the font of his name there. I like the simplicity. It's very matter of fact, which I think jives to some extent with the style of the card. But it's a little perfunctory, as if they just sort of picked it might even be Helvetica, the default font in Microsoft Word, which is something about that doesn't really seem to live up to the artistry of the rest of the card. So I think contrast. So look, let me know if you disagree, and if I'm just like, totally off the wall with this. I hadn't seen this card before 2 weeks ago, and now I can't stop thinking about it. I have no particular affinity for Carlton Fisk. I know he was a great baseball player, but that's really all I thought about him. Just by contrast, we're talking about good and bad sort of ways to make a baseball card. Here's an example of a bad baseball card, I think. This is Tom Glavine, where 60 to 65% of Tom Glavine's face is totally obscured by his arm and his armpit. I mean, I can find a million cards that I think are kind of silly or kind of ugly, and I can find many fewer that I think are really fun and beautiful to look at. But I picked this one because it's Tom Glavine. He's another Hall of Famer, so I'm not just totally motivated by the quality of player here. There are many great Tom Glavine cards. There are many great Fleer Ultra cards. They did some good things some years. I don't know what the hell this design at the bottom is supposed to be. It looks like the little wings you get when you're a kid and you go on an airplane. The background is this like gross muddled gray. It's blurred, but blurred with no sort of end to highlight the player. But if you're highlighting the player, don't you want to show either his face or his team logo? It's the thing, this thing covers his crotch. I mean, there's just like very little thought put into this. It's almost like what pictures of Tom Glavine do we have lying around? So this is just one of many, many of the sort of contrasts that I think about when I'm looking through cards. I'm really interested to hear if you agree or disagree with me, if you think this is if you think this is a worthwhile way to think about baseball cards. For me, it's almost the only reason to look at baseball cards. I think they are when they're done right, they're an art form, and when they're done wrong, they're not worth financially or otherwise the paper they're printed on. So so we don't have to end with that. Let me just this is Carlton Fisk was Pudge. That was his nickname. But his other nickname, and I think the one that's probably more apt here, is the Commander. This is a commanding baseball player, and this is a baseball card that I think really shows you that. It speaks to you about that through its imagery. So those are my thoughts on these two cards. I'm interested to hear your thoughts, and I hope you thought this video was thought-provoking, and I look forward to making more. Thanks.